Alright, hey guys, I'm CCG back in the video. With this video, I'm going over the new Memento archetype, so let's get started here. Here we have the Memento Tectolica, the Nether Skull Dragon. It's a level 11 Earthworm effect monster. It has 5,000 attack, 5,000 defense. Right away, this makes it seem like this is the boss monster for the deck, but let's see here. It must be special summoned from your hand or grave by shuffling 5 other Memento monsters with different names from your hand and or grave into the deck or extra deck. So it looks like a big part of the deck might be to just pitch some cards into the grave in order to fill it up. Doing that, you're actually able to bring this card out. If you control no other monsters, this card can attack all opponent's monsters once each, so that makes it pretty easy to finish your opponent. Once per turn, if your opponent activates a card or effect, you can special summon one Memento monster from your hand or grave. So you're not going to be able to negate that effect, but you are able to special summon a Memento monster. That's pretty cool to see. So here we have Memento Horde and Dragon. You can only special summon with the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. If you have 3 or more Memento monsters with different names in your grave, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card in the field is destroyed by card effect, you can target 3 face-up cards in the field, including at least one Memento card you control. Destroy them. So, looks like Memento, kind of fitting to be using classic cards here, using Trihorn Dragon, as it says here, in order to do different things. So, with this one, we're actually going to be able to special summon this card out if we have 3 Memento monsters with different names in the grave. So being able to use cards that pitch this or pitch your other Memento cards is going to be really nice. Being able to use this card once it's destroyed by a card effect, you're going to be able to pop a lot of cards, but you are going to have to pop a Memento card. I'm sure there's going to be a Memento card that's actually able to benefit from it. So here we have Memento Tatsunuro Shigo. So this is based on Tatsunuro Shigo, the classic card. And I've always struggled to pronounce it, but there it is. So if you control no face of monsters other than Memento monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. So again, another easy way to get this card out. This is the level 5 monster. It's level 8 monster. So it looks like there's not going to be any exceeding or synchro summoning going on here. During the main phase, you can destroy 1 Memento monster you control, and if you do send any number of Memento monsters with different names whose total levels are equal to or lower than the destroyed monster's original level from the deck to the grave. So it looks like the Memento monsters are focused on destroying themselves in order to fill up the grave, and this card fulfills that role, while also not only are you going to be popping one of your cards, but then from there you're actually going to be able to fill up the grave as well. And then here we have Memento Fairy Witch. So again, this is a Fairy Witch remake. So if this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Memento monster from your deck to your hand. And this looks like it's going to be just a card, just a generic search for the deck. So that's pretty cool to see here. And then you can target 1 level 2 or lower Memento monster in your graveyard, destroy 1 Memento monster you control, and if you do special summon the targeted card. So that's pretty easy to get out, and all it requires you is just to pop a card. So again, you can benefit from popping it as long as you're able to get out a better monster from here, and also keeping the grave filled with Memento monsters in order to keep their effects active. I'm sure there's going to be a spell or a trap or something that gives you a benefit from popping these cards. And then here we have Memento Mace. So again, a remake of Key Mace. During your opponent's main phase, if you control Memento Tectolica, the Nether Skull Dragon, which is the boss monster, quick effect, you can discard this card and target 1 face-up card your opponent controls. Control it. Take control of it until the end phase. So that's going to be pretty fun. Just as long as you have the boss monster out, during your opponent's turn, just take their monster. That's going to be pretty fun. I'm curious how people are going to be able to use that. That's going to be really annoying. Definitely a fun effect that isn't just a plain old negate. And then during your main phase, you can destroy 1 Memento monster you control, and if you do, add 1 Memento card from your deck to your hand. So similar to Memento Fairy Witch here as a searcher. So this card is going to be fun. It's going to serve as the hand trap for the deck. So here we have Memento Goblin. During the main phase, if you control Memento Tectolica, the Nether Skull Dragon, you can discard this card. Your opponent cannot target Memento monsters you control with card effects this turn. So being able to just drop this card, protecting your Memento monster or your Memento monsters can be pretty strong. I can see this being similar to Miscellaneousaurus, not as powerful of course, but at least protecting your opponent from imperming them or using other hand traps, or maybe interacting during your turn with other effects as well, like if their turn already passed and they already set up a board with some negates, some target effects, then that could be useful. Yeah, and then during your main phase, you can destroy 1 Memento monster you control, and if you do, send up to 2 Memento cards with different names from each other from your deck to the grave. So again, just another way to fill up your grave. Not any crazy effects so far. I think the thing that has been more interesting, or the most interesting, has been Memento Mace, just because you're able to take something during your opponent's turn. That seems pretty fun, but let's see the field spell. So here we have Nether Skull Temple Mementoran. It's a field spell card. If your Memento monster battles, your opponent can activate spells or traps until the end of the damage step. So that could be pretty solid, being able to do that, take your opponent, or your opponent basically make your Memento monsters into Armades can be decent. If a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target 1 of them, special summon 1 Memento monster with the lower level from your hand or grave. Again, this is pretty good, just being able to use this in order to recycle your Memento monsters, while also, you know, you want to keep your grave filled with them. And of course, you're going to have effects that trigger by destroying your opponent's monsters. So here we have, of course, Memento Mace. You saw that by destroying a Memento monster, we're able to add a Memento card from our deck to our hand. And then if we have this field spell out, then of course we're going to be able to use this in order to special summon one Memento monster with the lower level from our hand or grave. So we can continue to get some plays out without completely losing everything here. And then once returned during your end phase, you can target one Memento spell or trap in your grave, set it. So this looks like it's definitely going to be focused on this field spell. You definitely want to get this field spell out. It's going to make the deck a lot easier to use here. And then here we have Memento Bone Party, which is a quick play spell card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. Destroy one Memento monster in your hand or face-up field, and if you do, take one Memento monster with a different name from your deck, and either add it to your hand or special summon it in defense position. So that could be pretty good, just being able to search something out. And of course, this is a quick play spell. So if your opponent's going to activate something, let's say they try to impermanent effect, then you can use this, just pop it. Not only do you possibly get the destruction effect benefit from the field spell, but you can actually use this in order to search something out or special summon a monster out. So pretty fun card to see here. And then during your main phase, you can banish this card from your grave, then target one Memento monster you control. If it attacks the defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. So it's just a bonus effect that a lot of times I feel like a lot of people are just going to forget they can do that, but it's good if you remember and you're in that exact situation. That could be decent. And then here we have Memento Boneback, which is a quick play spell card. If a face-up Memento monster you control leaves the field by your opponent, special summon one of the boss monsters from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. That makes it a lot easier to get out the Memento boss monster. If your opponent just happens to get rid of one of your Memento monsters, then being able to get that out helps you a lot, and it makes a lot of cards here a lot easier to use, like Memento Goblin. And we saw that with Memento Mace here, just being able to take your opponent's cards. Of course, this one here, it's going to have to happen during the main phase, which I'm sure that's not going to be too much of a problem, but being able to do that, take your opponent's monster, that could be pretty fun. And if your opponent moves a Memento monster out of the graveyard while this card is in the grave, you can banish this card, special summon as many Memento monsters as possible, with different names as possible for your hand and or deck. So this is a really powerful quick play spell. Being able to, if your opponent just tries to like call by grave something or attempt to remove something in any way, then being able to use this as a reaction to that, it seems pretty strong. Definitely a really good card that helps out the deck and makes it less reliable, or less having to rely on its own effects here, and just doing something pretty insane with that. So here we have two final cards, two traps. Memento Fractured Dance, so it's a normal trap card. If you control a Memento monster, target one card on the field, destroy it. Then if you control Memento Tectolica, the Nether Skull Dragon, you can destroy one more card on the field, being able to pop two things. It's okay, it's decent. When an attack is declared involving your Memento monster and your opponent's monster, you can banish this card from your grave. Off face of monsters your opponent currently controls lose 1000 attack. So again, not that insane compared to like this quick play spell that's able to do a lot for the deck. This card's just okay. And then here we have Memento Cranium Burst. It's a continuous trap card. Your opponent's monsters must attack the Memento monsters you control with the highest attack if able. So you're just going to be able to activate this and make it awkward for your opponent to interact with your monsters here, especially because you have a lot of weak Memento monsters that might just stay on the field. And then when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can target one Memento Tectolica, the Nether Skull Dragon you control. It loses exactly one attack or defense, and if it does, negate that effect. So that could be pretty fun. So here, it's basically a monster negate for the deck, and the nice thing about that is that this is a bonus effect, because that's all it's really good for, is as a bonus effect. If you set this down, activate this, and you have the boss monster out, then your opponent, your opponent's not going to be able to do much doing this here. So yeah, that's going to be pretty fun. You're going to have the boss monster for them to deal with, and then it's also, the second effect is once per chain, so it's not once per turn. So as long as you have 1000 attack on that guy, then of course we saw he has 5000 attack and defense. So being able to use that, just drop it, potentially 5 negates, pretty powerful, pretty powerful. This is definitely a good trap here that you're able to establish if your opponent doesn't have a great way of dealing with the trap here outside of monster effects. Honestly, I thought at first, was it going to be too great of an archetype, but it came around. Really strong spells and traps. Very fun, like Mace. Mace is able to do some interesting things. And yeah, overall, I think it's a decent archetype that I'm definitely going to like playing around with. Let me know what you guys think about the new archetype and what you guys think about it just playing out around with classic cards. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.